It's April 4th, 2022. This is To My Liberal Friends, and I'm John Haddo. There's no doubt the Democratic Party has a severe division between the progressives and the moderates. That division is causing much of the polling problems for Democrats. The Progressive Caucus members come from deep blue urban districts where their constituents look for government programs to help them sustain their level of living conditions. They like big government, and because they are more low-income people in urban districts, they don't worry as much about tax issues for the fact that most of them are not paying much in federal income taxes, if any at all. The moderates in the Democratic Party are seeing their constituents objecting to the massive deficits and increased government spending, and many of them are directly impacted when it comes to the tax proposals coming out of the White House. But this is not to say Republicans don't have their own issues as we move toward the midterm elections. The elephant, no pun intended, in the room is always Donald Trump. I suspect if you're able to get a true answer from most Republican lawmakers, they would wish that Trump would fade away, stay in Florida, and play golf. But anyone who knows Donald Trump also knows that his ego is so massive that he will continue to interject himself into the political fray whenever and wherever he feels it serves his own purposes. And that is the major problem facing Republicans as they try to craft a strategy to win back the House of Representatives and the Senate. To fully understand this problem, you have to separate the Trump persona from the Trump policies. It is his persona that turns so many in the electorate away from him. But it is his policies that also attract many voters that otherwise would not be counted in the Republican column. To win the presidency in 2016, Trump pulled in blue-collar voters who had previously picked Democratic candidates or sat out the elections. Republicans across the ideological spectrum say they want to keep these voters in the fold even without Trump at the helm of the party. Trump backed tougher border enforcement. He embraced a strong energy developing production program in the United States and passed broad tax cuts that affected almost everybody in society, giving tax cuts to the middle class, and those are just some of the policy moves that people liked. He also presided over a fast-growing economy that lifted jobs and wages before being derailed by the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, his opponents said he mishandled it, but I'm not sure how any president could have handled it correctly. Certainly Biden has not done any better. Now concerns about the economy, notably inflation, as well as the immigration and tax policy, are once again on the front burner at Capitol Hill. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy puts it succinctly, quote, "Just look at the policy difference between him and Biden, where they were on an energy level, where we were internationally, and where we were economically," end quote. The more that he focuses on the differences in policies, I think he could be a great deal of help to people in the next election. He still has a microphone, end quote. It becomes clear to the Republican leadership that they have to find a way to thread the needle. An NBC News poll taken last month found that 40% of Republican respondents considered themselves to be more supporters of Mr. Trump, while 53% considered themselves to be more supportive of the party as a whole. When he was in the White House, polling consistently found more Republicans saying they backed Donald Trump than the party, and that's a problem for the Republican Party. That is a division within the party that could end up costing them wins that they expect in November. There is no better comparison than Liz Cheney and Elise Stefanik. Cheney chaired the Republican conference, and it was Stefanik that replaced her after Cheney criticized Trump and ultimately voted to impeach him. Cheney, accepting a position on the January 6th committee, did herself no favors among Trump supporters in the House. According to Stefanik, an avid supporter of Trump, quote, "Most candidates, to a person actually, who run and win today are supportive of President Trump. And I think that shows where the electorate is, but also where our candidates are. The highest profile anti-Trump voices are either retiring or they're going to face very, very significant challenges among their voters at home," end quote. But yet, if we watch the election of Glenn Youngkin in Virginia over a heavily favored Democrat, Terry McAuliffe, you have to wonder if it is the policies that Trump supported or the man, Trump himself. Youngkin kept Trump out of Virginia and won. He focused his race on the issues that were important to voters like education. What causes many Republicans angst in this election year is the penchant that Trump has for supporting and endorsing candidates in primary races against any Republican who will not support his fanatical effort to continue to insist the 2020 election was somehow stolen from him. In Georgia, he convinced former Senator David Perdue to run against Governor Brian Kemp in a primary. That's not fared well for Trump since Kemp continues to have a strong lead over Perdue. From my perspective, I don't understand why Perdue would do this, since I believe had Trump not insisted that Georgia electoral votes were stolen from him, Perdue would still be sitting in the U.S. Senate. In Wyoming, Trump is backing a challenger to Liz Cheney, and he's apparently enlisted the support of many Republican lawmakers, since dozens of them showed up to help host a fundraiser for Harriet Hageman, and that included Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy. In Arizona, Trump found a willing dupe to support his, quote, stolen election, unquote, theory and endorsed Kari Lake. He did that despite her previous support for Barack Obama. Former Congressman Matt Salmon, a proven conservative, has now closed that ground from earlier polls and may well win the governor's primary race in Arizona. In speaking with Matt, he told me that he finds that voters like the Trump policies, particularly on border security, and so he has to walk a fine line on keeping on the issues and not alienating those that support Trump the person. In Alaska, Lisa Murkowski is up for re-election, and Trump is backing a candidate to replace her. But Senator Murkowski is no rookie when it comes to tough elections. She lost a primary in 2010 and then ran as a write-in candidate against her Tea Party-backed opponent and won. She was easily re-elected in 2016. Her position as the top Republican on the Senate Energy Committee is crucial to the people of Alaska. If they take the Senate, she will chair that committee. I think the most clearly stated position on the issue comes from Congressman Don Bacon of Nebraska. He voted for the bipartisan infrastructure bill, which Donald Trump opposed, and that drew Trump to call for a primary challenge to Congressman Bacon. Now, no such opponent has emerged, and Trump has not been visible in Nebraska since. Bacon said, quote, "It's important not to burn those bridges," end quote, between the wings of the party. The policies, that's what can unify us, end quote. He's exactly correct. This is the tightrope the Republicans have to walk. They have to focus on the policies and not the distraction of Donald Trump. It is the policies that affect everyday American, and it is the policies with clear distinctions can be drawn between Republicans and Democrats in Congress and the White House. If they can keep the focus, I believe you could see a strong majority for Republicans in the House and a small majority in the Senate. Then Joe Biden would have to recalculate his entire agenda in order to pass anything. And the Progressive Caucus and the Squad, led by AOC and Ilhan Omar, would become minor players in the larger scheme of things, and Democrats in the House would tell them to sit down and be quiet. One other thing I would add, a close friend of mine, in talking to a former staffer for Nancy Pelosi, who has since moved on downtown to work in the government relations field, has said that Nancy Pelosi used to schedule herself out for a full 2 years. Now she's only scheduled until October. The belief is if Republicans win the House, Nancy Pelosi will resign from Congress. There's no way she can keep the leadership of the Democratic caucus, having lost that leadership role twice. This has been To My Liberal Friends. Thanks for listening.